Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Daily Dealer Live. I'm your host, Sam Dark, and joining me today is the Yuli DiMartino. And together, we're bringing you the best auto industry content anywhere online, in store, and across planet Earth. Yuli, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, a reminder to our audience, we're live streaming today across all CDG social media platforms, every single one of them. Post your comments, all of them. We want them. We'll bring as many into the show today as we possibly can. And check out what we have coming up. Pretty cool show today. Lithia's Mike Cavanaugh joins the show to discuss training, development, and a post-Father's Day message about what family and automotive means to him. But Yuli, first up, let's dive into today's automotive headlines, shall we?
Let's go.
Breaking news today. Japan's exports took a hit in May, dropping 1.7% year over year. But the real damage came from the U.S., where exports fell 11.1%, driven by a steep 24.7% decline in car shipments. That decline is a major blow, given that automobiles made up more than a quarter of Japan's total U.S. exports in 2024. It's a big part of Japan's economy. And with a 25% UF tariff already in place on Japanese auto and steel exports and a broader 24% reciprocal tariff kicking in July 9th, the export picture is likely to get worse from here. For U.S. dealers who rely on Japanese brands like Toyota, Honda, Mazda, and Subaru, the slowdown raises real concerns about future inventory availability and supply chain stability. The bigger picture here, Japan's prime minister met with President Trump to renegotiate, but talks between the two were unsuccessful at the recent G7 summit in Canada. So, Yuli, a lot of brands and OEMs that are potentially impacted here. It seems to me like one of the most disciplined OEMs in that list, Toyota. It'll be interesting to see how it's impacted one side or the other. So,
I agree.
Next up today, new vehicle registrations among 18 to 35-year-olds have dropped from 12% in Q1 2021 to below 10% for 2 straight quarters, as rising prices and $1,000 plus monthly payments push younger buyers out of the new car market. This, according to S&P Mobility. The affordability gap is driving many in this age group towards subscription-based Uber, Lyft, Flex, car-sharing services, or used vehicles, while older adults, 55 and up, have held steady at 50% of all new registrations. That shift poses a long-term risk for automakers. Younger buyers have the highest lifetime customer value, obviously, because they've got the longest runway left. Yet the industry is increasingly built around aging consumers who won't be in the market much longer. Still, it's not all bad news. 18 to 34-year-olds registered nearly 1.1 million new vehicles in the past year, with compact utility vehicles leading the way at 21% of their segment volume, followed by compact cars and a rising interest in fully electric vehicles. As S&P's Jason Jordan-Hamos notes, the key now is tailoring the marketing to this cohort's financial reality and evolving preferences, because if brands lose young buyers now, they might not get them back later. That's also ominous. Next up today, Ford has paused dealer deliveries of the Mustang Mach-E due to lockout issues where the 12-volt battery can unexpectedly drain, causing the front door latches to stay locked or unlocked, depending on where they sit at the moment. The recall affects over 300,000 Mustang Mach-E vehicles from model years 2021 to 2025, including about 197,000 in the U.S. and 120,000 internationally, with dealers told to halt demos and deliveries until a software fix is ready. So far, no injuries, no accidents have been reported related to this issue, but Ford has not yet announced when the software updates will be available. And finally up today, automakers are expected to pass nearly $2,000 in additional costs per vehicle onto buyers as a result of Trump's tariffs, with an estimated 80% of the $30 billion tariff burden hitting consumers. This, according to Alex Partners, this could reduce vehicle sales by about 1 million units over the next 3 years. GM and Ford are already preparing for significant impacts this year, with projected tariff-related hits of $5 billion and $2.5 billion, respectively. Although these tariffs are expected to ease eventually from 25% down to 7.5% as new trade deals are negotiated, the damage from cuts to EV incentives like the $7,500 tax credit may have longer-term consequences. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve kept interest rates steady this week at 4.25% to 4.5%, but adjusted their economic outlook to account for tariff impacts, raising the inflation forecast from 2.7% to 3%, lowering GDP growth projections from 1.7 to 1.4 and expecting unemployment to rise slightly to 4.5%. Wall Street expects no rate cuts through July, despite ongoing political pressure, reflecting cautious optimism amid this tariff-induced uncertainty. And that's a wrap on this Friday for the news, Yulia.
Ominous indeed.
It's so interesting. We still talk, even after Jonathan spoke, tariffs lead the headlines. The impact on OEMs, dealers, and all of us in automotive of these potential tariffs. So it's going to be interesting in the coming days, weeks, months, years to see how all of this plays out, which leads us into a guest I'm excited about today. I'm excited about all of our guests, Julie. I'm excited about every single one. But today is someone I've had experience with in the past, prior life at Zurich when I worked there. We're bringing in today Regional Vice President at Lithia and Driveway, Mike Cavanaugh. Mike, welcome to the show.
Mike,
Thank
welcome.
you guys.
It's good to have you joining us. Thanks for being here. So I saw a post from you. Before we ask our signature question, I just want to acknowledge a post that led to us inviting you and reaching out to you for today's show, where you talked about the importance of family in automotive. And before I ask you about the post, we'll show it in just a minute. I want to start off with how's biz in your world, in your footprint, Mike?
Yeah, business is good right now. I think, we've got a good mix of brands here in my region across the country, which is really the Midwest. And I think we've seen good demand, consistent demand. We've seen that on the new car side, the used car side. So it's everybody's happy right now. And I think we're really just trying to focus on how do we continue to earn customers for life and wow them with the experience and sales and service and, continue to grow from there.
So, Mike, anyone that follows you across social media, you've got the coolest posts on LinkedIn and Facebook. You're talking about the things you and your team are engaged in. You're celebrating the people of automotive. Again, before we go into that Father's Day post, tell us a little bit about your area of responsibility and what you do within Lithia.
Yeah, so I'm the regional vice president for the central region, which is the Midwest. And I always like to say that's kind of the cold, a little bit more boring states that a lot of people don't like to go to, but we love it here. I grew up in Michigan, I grew up in the Midwest, and I love this part of the country. I think we've got, a lot of great human beings that live here that we get to serve at our dealerships and, some amazing team members over here. But, I've got about 45 dealerships across the middle of the country here. So that spans from, pretty much Michigan to Minnesota. And we represent every brand from, the Toyotas and Hondas and Fords, GMs, Chryslers to Bentley, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce. We've got a little bit of everything. So, I love it because we can help anybody that needs our help. It's awesome.
Yeah, that is very cool. So what's your furthest south state that you address? When you want to get warm in the middle of Minnesota cold winter or Michigan cold winter, where do you go, Mike?
I go on vacation. I
Good,
go
good,
someplace
good.
else. Yes,
Good.
there's no place to escape the cold in the Midwest, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the Father's Day post. So earlier this week, you posted a comment about your dad and what he meant to you in automotive and how he essentially gave you a start. You even referenced him giving you your first job as a porter for $20 a day. Tell us a little bit about that start into automotive and what it means to you, that family connection in automotive.
Yeah, so my family's been in the automotive industry in one way or another for multiple generations. My great grandfather and my grandfather had a full service gas station just outside of Detroit that they had for decades. And my dad and his brothers all worked there, and that's where he learned how to work on cars and serve customers and take good care of your community and your neighbors. And I think a lot of those values carried on. And then he told me a story recently about how he got into selling cars. As one day he bought an inexpensive used car from somebody and decided to put it for sale on the lot of the gas station, and he sold it and he made good money. And his dad said, "Wow, I didn't know you could make that much money selling cars." He said, "Maybe that's a good idea." And he kind of started to get into the business from that. And that was back in the 60s, a long time ago. My dad's about 80 right now. So it's, kind of cool to see how it evolved. And, my dad was a mechanic by trade for many years. And then he got into selling cars and running dealerships. And, if I really wanted to see my dad as a kid, I probably had to go to work with him because he worked 6 days a week in retail. And I tended to, be a good kid most of the time, but not all the time. So I think he realized that and said, maybe I need to keep you out of trouble. And, there was a lot of times where he'd pick me up from school during the week and I'd go work with him till close at the dealership and every Saturday and all summer long. So, I learned the car business from the ground up. I was the one. This is back when people could still smoke in a dealership, and I had to empty
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ashtrays and
Yeah.
take out the trash and clean the bathroom and get rid of the old tires and all the dirty jobs nobody else wanted to do for about $20 a day. And as you know, Sam, living in Michigan, and we also get 10 cents for every can that you return to
Yeah.
the store. And part of
Yeah.
my pay would be I can take everybody's cans from the day, and I got to take them back and supplement my
Nice.
Oh, that's
income. So,
awesome.
yeah, great perks and benefits to start my career.
So at what point in your career did you know automotive would be home for you?
Interestingly enough, growing up working in a family business, it's not as easy as a lot of people might think, right? You're usually, your family's pretty hard on you and you get paid the least amount of money. So I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. And I did a couple tours in Iraq. And
Oh, wow.
after that, I realized the car business was kind of a lot of fun. I thought the Marine Corps was going to be what I wanted to do for 20 years. And you do a
Yeah.
couple deployments and you get shot at a couple times and you say, man, that car business thing wasn't that bad. So um, I got back and I got back into the car business. And I've left the retail side before and I've went on the auto finance side. I've been on the software side as well with Max Digital that has been acquired by ACV. So I've
Okay.
got a
Yeah.
really good breadth of experience across the industry. But I love retail and I love Lithia. This is an awesome company to work at, and it's hard not to love what you do every day when you work with a lot of great people. And I think that's kind of a big key to our success. Our mission is growth powered by people. So we put a lot of intentionality into who we hire and how we develop them. And if you enjoy the people you work with, even if you spend a lot of time with them, which means you probably work a little bit more than the average bear, it's hard not
Yeah.
to love what you do because these people become like your family. They really do. It's kind of cliche to say that, but you
Yeah.
create great bonds with people and you enjoy seeing them every day.
So, Mike, what is it about automotive overall that lends to family working with family? I know at our Ziegler Auto Group, we've got generations that work together, grandparents and parents and kids, grandparents in multiple different roles, controllers in offices, porters, drivers, whatever, parents. I mean, there are just multi generations. I know at Lithia, you're the same. You've created that work environment that provides people opportunity. You don't see that multi generation a lot in auto or in any other industry like you see it in automotive.
I think one, you can make a really good living in this industry. And I think sometimes that even if your family sees you working hard every day, they usually see that there's some reward to that. And that could be whether
Yeah,
you're a technician, right? There's technicians that make amazing livings. There's a lot of salespeople across the country that make more than GMs do at some stores, right? So there's
yeah,
all kinds of people. That F&I managers is another great one. I'm sure that in your days at Zurich, how many F&I managers you meet that you said, wow, this guy makes a phenomenal living. So I think part of it
yeah,
is when you grow up around your family and you see they're able to provide a good life, there's some attractiveness to that. But the other thing is I think if you're a hospitality minded person, if you genuinely like other people and care about other people and you want to serve other people, this is an industry that almost everywhere in the country, somebody needs a car or they need to have their car worked on for it to operate. So if you like to serve people and you like to help people, it's an awesome industry. That's one of my favorite parts of my job is that I get to help a ton of people. If I meet somebody at my kid's school or my neighbors or family or friends, you're a great resource for those folks. And I think
yeah,
that's an exciting part about being in the business.
yeah. So transitioning into some of the leadership initiatives you've had at Lithia, you've done a great job within Lithia of creating career paths for folks wanting to get into this industry. Tell us a little bit about that between Northwood and Dart and some of the other things that you've done to help bring people into automotive.
Yeah, so I mean the DART program I think started, maybe 5 years ago. And it's really was a, data and analysis rotational training program. And we've got a lot of, we call them performance analysts across the country that really help, our leadership across the country, manage their stores, drive high performance, identify opportunities. And, we rotated different people that were recent college graduates through that program. And, some of those folks that started, years ago have taken increasingly senior roles in the organization. And one of them is, the head of our, real estate and facilities, as well as the performance management team for the whole country now. And started off in this program 5 years ago. I've got, my niece is part of this program right now. Speaking of family in the business, right?
That's
And,
cool.
we try to find really, really high potential folks that,
Yeah.
they don't necessarily need to know the car business, but we can give them a rotational training where they get experience in different departments. And we've got kind of a corporate version of this that is more on the support side. And we've got an operations focus that we launched about a year ago here in my region, where, you know, you rotate through parts and service and sales and BDC and F&I to get a really well-rounded background. And the cool thing about it is it's not an overly structured program where it's a defined period of time and you have to spend X amount of days or weeks in a certain department. Is it kind of flows with how that, you know, dart individual wants to flow through the path, where we've got a gentleman at our Buick GMC store here in Troy, Michigan, that, you know, he was in the logistics industry maybe a year or two out of college a year ago. He went through this program and he really latched on to used cars. He liked it. He found a knack for it. He wanted to learn about it. He met with the V Auto reps all the time and really learned the business. He's one of our better used car managers in the group now, and he's in his early 20s, and he wasn't in the car business a year ago.
That's cool. I love that as a success
Wildly,
story, right? Yeah.
wildly impressive, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
that's really what we try to do, is find great people, give them a great opportunity. We clearly are, you know, we're the largest dealer group in the world, so that's attractive to some people, I think, from a stability perspective, right? And in a growth perspective, that they're going to have opportunities. But also, you know, our benefits are phenomenal. And I think one of those, you know, new additions to our benefits is the relationship that we have with Northwood University. And, you know, we give, for every employee, spouse, or dependent, they get, you know, pretty significantly discounted tuition at Northwood University. They get scholarships as well, right? To
Wow.
Northwood University. Again, every
Yeah.
employee, spouse, and dependent, right? So that's a pretty
Wow.
substantial benefit when you think about it across the organization. And really the goal there is, you know, we can continue to help, you know, people that want to get into, whether it's the hospitality industry or the automotive industry, ideally work for Lithia, provide them an opportunity to get an education at Northwood. Northwood then says this is probably a great place to work, and we get interns. We've got, you know, probably I think 8 interns started a couple weeks ago. Interviewed all of them, spent time with all of them on their first day. I mean, some great high quality individuals coming out of Northwood. For the folks that don't know, amazing
So,
product that
so
comes
and,
out of there.
and to your point, Mike, for the folks that don't know about Northwood University, Saginaw, Michigan, right? Saginaw Bay City there. It's the premier automotive university in the world, right? Like NADA Dealer Academy does a great job. There are other kind of schools or curriculums that do a nice job, but nobody beats Northwood in terms of its depth, breadth, and the way it sets folks up. Bill Vaughn says more proof that the car business changes live. If you want it, you'll go get it.
The
Which
dream
I love.
makers.
I love that comment. So, Mike, what would you say to someone who coming out of COVID's a little bit jaded because they're like, hey, you know what? People just aren't as well trained for automotive. They're not ready for a lot of these automotive roles. And the American dream that is automotive, where you can go achieve anything you want, is dead. What would you say to somebody that said that?
I think you can't take for granted what you got taught 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, right? Is everything that we know, that we've learned, that we do now, it was so long ago with the basics that you forget that someone did teach you how to do all those things. And you have to have the patience and go back and realize it's my obligation as a leader to teach people these same things. And I think it starts with, you know, basic communication skills. And I'll share a quick story about my son, actually. And I was after work one day, I went to his basketball coach with him, and there was a couple kids there. And one of the kids in there was a girl that he's went to school with for years, that's been in his class for the last year. And I noticed that he didn't talk to her the whole time that they were there playing basketball. And I was talking to his mom while she was there. She says, "Isn't that funny? They don't talk at all." And then when we got into the car, I said, "Hey, buddy, why didn't you say anything to her?" And he goes, "Oh, I just snapped her and I told her great job."
Oh,
He goes, "Look at my streak. We've snapped each other for the last 35 days." And I
yeah,
said, "So you're telling me you Snapchatted this girl 35 days straight, but you didn't even acknowledge you knew each other in person?" And
yeah,
so I think sometimes we have to take a step back and say, like, when we ask people to, you know, phone, text, email, and call people and follow up on leads, they may be very uncomfortable talking to somebody on the phone, and they may need a lot more
yeah,
training than you think they need, because
yeah,
it's unnatural for them, right? Like my son doesn't answer the phone when I call him. Maybe if
yeah.
I FaceTime him, he does, right? I don't have Snapchat, but he'd probably respond to me all the time and have a good streak.
So you make an interesting comment, Mike. Who's right? Your son for using the most current form of communication, Snapchat, to communicate with her. And maybe we have something to learn about updating our methods of communication, or is it us who are used to the more traditional roles because it supports automotive better? I'm fascinated because I've learned so much more about alternate methods of communication from younger generations. Uh, that
For
have
sure.
helped to enhance my communication. What's the takeaway there, Mike?
I think that we have to continue to evolve, right? Is that, for a lot of my career, I was always the young guy. And all of a
Yeah,
sudden, one day you wake up and you're not the young guy anymore. You're the old guy and you start to
yeah,
become out of touch. And unless you're really intentionally trying to stay close to how the next generation prefers to communicate, you're going to get lost. And I think for years, we thought as long as you're pounding the phones and sending emails, you're going to get good engagement. And then it evolved to make sure you're texting because people like to text more. But I'll say,
yeah,
the youngest generation now, they are all on their platforms. I won't get a text back from my nephew or my son for days at a time because they
yeah,
don't check their texts like we check our texts. So
yeah.
I think
Which
for
is
us,
aggravating. Yeah,
it is, but I
It's
think we
so
have to
annoying.
think about that in our world as well too, and say like we have a unique business where we have to cater to everybody from 88-year-olds to 18-year
yeah,
olds,
yeah,
right? And we have to communicate how they prefer, not how we prefer, or we're probably
yeah,
not going to be very successful. So we have to adapt.
Real quick, Mike, you bring up an interesting point and you brought up your son. Obviously, the car business has been great to all of us. I love the car business. I don't think any of us will say otherwise. Would you want your son to follow in your footsteps?
Absolutely. I think the industry would be very different by the time he gets there. It's evolving at just a rapid pace, but I mean, I feel very fortunate, and I thank God every day because I get to do what I like with people I like where I like it, right?
yeah,
And there's that old saying that again is very cliche is, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, but I genuinely feel like that. I look forward to going to work every day. I obviously miss my family and I love to spend time with them, but I love going to work every day. I love what I
yeah,
do. I love the people I work with. I feel very blessed. And so it's like, why wouldn't I want my son to get there? And some people say, well, the hours and this and that, but it's like any job, if you want to be successful, you're probably not going to work 8 hours a day, punch out 9 to 5, and just be
Nope.
wildly successful and grow and have a wonderful career. You're going to probably have to put in a little bit more work and maybe work a little bit more than the average bear if you want to get ahead.
yeah,
That's the same thing everywhere. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But I love cars. I get to be around beautiful new cars, used cars all the time. I get to help people. I mean, there's not a lot of industries that I think are as fun and exciting as automotive is. At one point I was going to go, instead of going to Northwood for my MBA, I was going to go to the University of Michigan, get my JD, and I
okay.
was going to go be a lawyer. And I got to tell you, I probably wouldn't be smiling right now talking to you if I was a lawyer, and I love what I do.
Yeah. And actually, Yuli, I want to answer that question from my vantage point. My son went into automotive. I loved it. I celebrated with him.
Yeah,
Made me a little nervous because it's like, hey,
sure.
but here's something interesting. Is automotive teaches you a lot of the selling skills, to
Oh,
Mike's
yeah.
point, how to answer a phone, how to shake someone's hand, how to look somebody directly in the eye. And then you're armed with this skill set and this talent set where you can go out and you can either go to a related industry or
Hmm.
anything else sells. And in so many ways, automotive, I feel like, is the purest form of selling. So, all right,
Yeah.
Mike, last question before we let you go. You've had a long career with different companies. Lithia's your first large publicly held organization. What's one big takeaway in your transition over to Lithia many years ago? Because you've been there, what, 5, 6 years, I think. And what's one thing that Lithia just does really well in today's marketplace in June of 2025 that others might look at Lithia and say, that's pretty cool. We can learn from it, Mike.
There's probably a long list of things that we do really well, and it's part of the reason that I joined the organization when I did. Is they were a customer of mine before, so I got to know the organization and I got to know the people really well. And it was what we do really well is we have excellent leaders across the organization at every level. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is leaders have to have humble confidence.
Ooh,
They have to understand that you have to have the confidence to execute, to lead your team, but you have to have the humility to not think you're always right, and everybody else is always wrong. So I'd say the thing that we probably get right and we do better than most people is we're pretty protective about who we put in leadership roles, and we make
yeah,
sure that they're ready for it, and we put a lot of time, effort, and energy into helping each other. The one thing that is unique to us is that if you reach out to any store, if we've got a bunch of Ford stores, for example, if one of our Ford GMs reaches out to another one anywhere in the country, they will help them with whatever they need, right? Same
yeah,
thing happens with Toyota, same thing anybody. If you need something, anybody that's a fellow Lithian, as we call it, right, is willing to drop what they're doing and help you. And I don't think that's common in every organization, right? That there's a lot of competition and a little bit of cutthroatness, but we
Yeah.
genuinely want to see each other succeed. And I think that's something that we do better than anybody else, in my opinion.
You compete to everybody's benefit, which is rare in business anywhere. So, Mike Cavanaugh, a regional vice president of Lithia, we absolutely appreciate you being on the show today. We echo what Scott Campagnella posted. Thank you for your service. We appreciate everything that you did in the military, and then as you came back into automotive. Anybody that wants to follow you can go to LinkedIn. I think you're on Facebook as well. Follow Mike Cavanaugh's posts. You do a great job of highlighting and praising your team, and really to the point, helping individual team members go through their career well educated and well informed, well developed. So, Mike Cavanaugh, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
That's fun. That's fun. There are a ton of families in automotive where you have multi generations, and it's pretty cool to see he following that. Taylor and Craig posted to social, must be something special about the auto biz for it to be multi-generational so often. We see that again within our auto group, and many others do as well. So, all right, coming up next, with her finger on the pulse of automotive, CDG's editorial lead, our very own roving reporter for today's Daily Dealer Live, Anna Del Villar. Anna, welcome to the show. We appreciate having you.
Hey guys. Yeah, I'm so
Hey, Anna.
excited to be back. Hey. Yeah, oh, go ahead, Sam.
Let's temperature take, shall we, Anna?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Every month we put out temperature checks to our CDG community, and this month we got back hundreds of dealer responses, lots of interesting stuff going on. First thing we kind of noticed and picked up on was certain brands are continuing to struggle, but even the most reliable ones are also starting to wobble a little bit here and there. Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram dealers across the US and Canada say this has been one of the slowest months they've ever seen. There are some exceptions here or there, but on the whole, just hearing a lot of it's so slow right now. Stellantis probably is picking up on this, seems to know this is going on. They just rolled out a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty on Ram trucks. 2026 Ram trucks, and that's double what Ford, GM, and Toyota offer on their trucks. But interestingly, we saw a couple dozen comments from Toyota and Honda dealers reporting just a sudden drop off in traffic, which is strange because these brands are, usually the safest plays in any cycle. Meanwhile, luxury buyers, Mercedes, Cadillac, Ferrari, they say business is solid. Pre-owned is hot, and high-income buyers are still really active. We also saw that many dealers are kind of feeling a little bit of a hangover from the tariff-fueled spring. Lots of dealers reporting that traffic is really slow all the way from Iowa, Chicago, Connecticut, Florida, SoCal. They're talking, light traffic, fewer calls, and very little urgency. But some of that's seasonal, as we know, right? June's a little choppy. There are graduations, weather, certain things going on, but there are these extra forces that are kind of compounding on what's going on right now. So, some estimates say that there were 150,000 buyers pulled forward into March and April to beat, possible price hikes. And now that we might be setting into kind of a post surge lull here. And on top of that, OEM support is down. Incentives dropped in May across brands like VW, Mazda, Land Rover, Volvo, and BMW. They all dropped more than 10%. And kind of the final trend we identified here was we saw a wave of dealer comments that, the lead quality has dropped off considerably. One Honda GM said that leads felt like a quote, buy here, pay here traffic. And a Midwest store said the internet's become a quote, cesspool of bogus leads.
Ouch.
Wow, that's aggressive. I like that.
Yeah. Basically they're saying buyers are submitting leads weeks or even months before they're actually ready to transact. As you guys know, this throws off, close rates and BDC hours, and just the pipeline gets flooded with this kind of lower intent traffic. And that's likely because affordability is still kind of locked up. Per Cox Auto, the average monthly payment hit $756 in May. Interest rates, average auto loan rates, I should say, are back near 10%. So buyers, it seems like they're circling, but they're kind of waiting. But what was interesting is when you guys talked to Tina from Van Horn Automotive Group last week, she mentioned they're seeing kind of the same thing. So they're leaning into AI to filter out these lower quality leads and free up agents for, stuff that matters a little bit more maybe. And they also rolled out hyper targeted campaigns through a new customer data platform, which I think is pretty cool, pretty forward thinking. And that's kind of the bottom line here is uncertainty at the end of the day creates opportunity. The dealers who adapt, qualify their leads better, dial in then inventory, double down on retention. They're going to be the ones, that come out ahead when things start to balance out. So that's really what we saw this week. Lots of good insight from our community. And that's the industry pulse. Thanks, Sam. And you,
Anna, we
Thanks, Anna.
appreciate your perspective on this. And what's so cool is you give a very unfiltered, very unbiased view of the data as it comes across. So anybody out there looking to participate in one of your surveys or questions, temperature checks, anything posted by CDG to you out there asking, hey, how's biz? It comes back straight to you. So a few comments, Scott Campagna or Bill Vaughn says, tell us how you really feel, Anna. I think you were surprised by how yeah, that's right. And then Scott Campanella responded, Bill, no lies were told, hashtag AI. So good feedback, good comment. And then Bill Vaughn, Scott Campanella, car people are too funny. I don't know who these car people are we're talking about. I feel like it's one of those shows, but we appreciate your perspective, Anna, and thanks for bringing us the CDG temperature check as part of today's Industry Pulse. Appreciate you being on the show, Anna.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Thanks.
All right, today's episode of Daily Dealer Live is brought to you by Experian Automotive. Outdated or inaccurate customer information can severely impact your marketing efforts. Clean and enrich your first-party data with Experian Automotive to reduce marketing waste and better connect with your customers. Visit carguymedia.com/Experian to learn more and I said this last episode, if you can figure out how to scan this QR code as you're watching the show, don't leave the show, but figure out how to scan it and it'll take you right there as well. We appreciate Experian Automotive for supporting today's show. And heck, Yuli, without further ado, let's go to our next guest today. Our next guest also comes to us as a result of a recent social media post. It's a heck of a lot of fun to see what dealers and people in automotive are posting about because it really tells us about what is on people's minds. So second up today, Andrew Sun Tripp, Vice President Operations at Suntrup Auto Group. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Hey, how we doing, guys?
Andrew, welcome.
Good.
Give us a little background. Where are you located? What are you doing? And
we're
of
located
course,
in the greater St. Louis area. I operate as a Vice President of Operations, overseeing Suntrup Ford Westport, Suntrup Ford Kirkwood, and our Suntrup Buick GMC store.
What are you seeing on the ground? Can you echo some of Anna's comments from our internet funnel?
Yeah, the leads seem to be a little bit down as opposed to last month. But we're still we always try to focus on year over year. Well, how do we do prior month versus current month? So currently right now we're actually having a pretty decent month, but I do echo a little bit of what you were saying about as far as the leads seem to be down a bit and aren't converting as much as we had in prior months.
So you're saying you're down in lead count and lead quality?
Correct. Just this month so far. But I mean, we got a lot of month left, so we're going to see what happens.
For sure. Are you guys leveraging any platforms in-house to take advantage of what's going
on? Currently not. No, not right now. No. What do you mean as far as like
AI, any of the things that she
mentioned? Yes. We are using AI through our CRM. We use DriveCentric, which is a phenomenal CRM tool. We have an AI that's baked in there as well that also reaches out to our customers, almost acting as a BDC department, virtual BDC department, which has helped. We're on a trial right now with them, and we've seen some good results from that.
How is your personnel adapting to putting in something like that?
They're adapting. So, like some of our, I guess you would say that some of our younger salespeople, like they get it, they like it. Some of our older seasoned salespeople that like came from the old school way, they feel it gets in the way of them just contacting the customer. So there's some mixed feel with it, but I think overall people do like it. It helps with the touch points, helps with confirming appointments too as well. So in our CRM, just like you go to the dentist's office, right? You get a text message saying, "Are you confirming yes or no coming to showing up to your appointment?" Those kind of things all help drive people to get back into the store, and I think they do like that portion of it.
Hey, so Andrew, one of the reasons we wanted to have you on today's show is a recent social media post you put out there in the world. So, and I think it sort of follows the vein of what Mike Cavanaugh talked to us. Like, training is important. You had some advice for a salesperson on day one. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to post this information and put it out into the world.
So I put that out there because it was from my own experiences. When I graduated from school, I actually didn't come and work. We're in a family automotive business, so a lot of things that Kavanaugh was saying was very similar to situations that I felt. I didn't go and work for the family business right away. I actually went away to one of the largest Ford dealers in the Midwest. So just having that experience and like as a salesperson.
Why did you do that? Why did you decide? So your family's in a business, you got a clear-cut path to the top. Why did you go away?
I wanted to kind of prove it to myself, but also I think that was one of the most beneficial experiences I had to go at such a large dealer group. I just learned a lot. It was a lot of learning that really that propelled me for what I'm doing today, and especially when I came back, getting into more of a management role was very very beneficial. But I posted that because I had those experiences as a salesperson, working, not thinking so much like a salesperson, but thinking like a customer, slowing down. When it comes to the sales process, really finding out your customers' wants and needs and qualifying. And it really does help not trying to push so much, but asking the questions, why do you feel that way? Literally, sometimes just the question, why? And don't talk so much. Let them tell you why. They'll tell you,
So I want to ask a question about what it is about today's crop of salespeople that because I think you're on it. Like, it should be second nature to ask those questions. It should be second nature to be curious and to see our value as salespeople and helping to meet customers' need. But before we get to that, because we want to get there, I want to go back to you went away to this large group. We have on the show today probably some first or some second and third generation dealers potentially listening. Would you recommend that they do what you did, which is leave your own auto group and go work somewhere else? And then what was the most valuable thing you learned as part of that experience going away? And was it terrifying? Like, nobody knew probably who you were, right?
Sometimes when you don't know, you're not even really terrified. You just don't really even know. So sometimes it's, you don't really feel that way. But I felt, I was very lucky and fortunate because the group that I had gone to happened to be a very solid group. You don't really know.
Go to? Do you want to share it with us?
Golf Milford. I think their Hawk Auto Group is the name of their group. Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, so I there was a lot of luck that came with it. I just happened to roll into a place that was operating very well and just learning a lot. But you can take some things that you learn there and bring it back to your organization and say, hey, this was working here. Let's try this. Sometimes when you go straight, especially in a family business, if you've done one thing one way the whole entire time, you don't know anything else. So getting that experience and moving to another, going with a different group for a while, did help me in a lot of ways.
So I want to put you on the spot a little bit. You come back to your own auto group and you take on a leadership or a management role. You see some things for the first time that no one else has ever seen. What was one or two of the biggest things that you changed coming back?
Coming back, there was a lot. At first, it was more of just kind of, okay, let me get my bearings, see what's going on, but the biggest thing,
great leadership.
I didn't want to come in and start, barking orders or anything right away, kind of like assess the situation. But one of the biggest things I noticed just coming back was the communication between departments, didn't seem to have as great of a flow as I had with my previous job, meaning that we're all working together as a team. It was kind of a little bit more of an old school mentality, parts department, service department, used cars and service, arguing or whatever the case may be, but getting everybody to work together and synergize as a team and say why this is important, not just for your department, but hey, service manager, the reason why we have to do this is because of X, so they can perform here. Little things like that, bringing everybody together was
it a weekly meeting? Was it a communication channel? Did you start to Slack each other? Did you, what did you do?
We started with weekly meetings, and then cross department meetings. So, I think it's good for a used car or a new car manager to sit and find out what the service manager does every day. What is the parts guy doing? Sometimes they don't even go back and talk to the parts guy, or they haven't seen them in a while. So understanding what they do really helps everybody, I think, do their own jobs better, and just communicating, in general. So we started with weekly meetings, and more emails, because it's hard to meet all the time because we're all so busy and everybody's working so hard. So emails, also like creating email chains, getting things more out there so everybody could see, more transparency.
Yeah. That is very cool. All right, before we go back to the salesperson post, you have Nissan, you have Hyundai, you have Kia, Genesis, BMW, Volkswagen. We just talked about the impact of tariffs coming up on Nissan and on and many of the other OEMs. What are you seeing in terms of consumer demand? We saw a lot of demand initially as threat of tariffs. And are you seeing things kind of leveling off? Are you seeing still sales strong? How are the OEMs reacting? What are you seeing in that front?
So I'm with the 2 Ford stores and the Buick GMC store. We aren't seeing too much of a problem with that, at least yet. A lot of their vehicles,
employee pricing.
Employee pricing, and 80% of their vehicle, Ford at least, are assembled or manufactured in the United States. Not all of them, but in regards to the other stores, those what's interesting about our group, I have like second cousins who operate those stores, same last name, so they're not really affecting our stores as much. I can't really speak on behalf of that because I don't really know what's going on within their stores, but we do have a very big presence in the last name in the St. Louis area. I think there's probably 10 model lines in the St. Louis area. Correct. Yes.
And so you're all related, but you don't operationally join under the same group.
Yes, but we do have we will meet occasionally, but ownership is completely separate between those stores and our stores, but the same last name. So a lot of people from a branding standpoint, it works pretty well.
So in that structure, a big family, you meet occasionally. Are there things that you do to try to get economy of scale? Are there shared operations, or are you completely independent and separate?
We occasionally do. We just actually had a meeting last week with all our finance managers and sales managers between all the locations for some training on some reinsurance products and with PDS. So we had more of a group interaction meeting there. But for the most part, it is separate. Yes.
And you compete, right? So
yeah, we compete a little bit. Yeah.
Who wins?
Depends on the month. But fun competition.
All right. So going back to your post, you said a few things. You said, if I could give people advice on day one, I just lost it here. You said, stop thinking like a salesperson, start thinking like your customer, talk less, ask better questions, put yourself in your customer's shoes, understand what they actually need, treat people how you want to be treated, be patient. If it's not the right vehicle for that customer, don't push it. Are you seeing an increased need to train, and what's driving that need in your market or in your area?
Yeah, I definitely think there's always training it's like blocking and tackling, in football. You're always constantly wanting to train and keep getting better and better. And in today's day and age, a lot of the customers, they already do a lot of their research, prior to coming to the dealership. So, asking the right questions, qualifying the customer correctly it seems like it's so simple, but it's not that simple. So when you're, also dealing with we have a lot of new salespeople, we had a little bit of turnover from after COVID, and, salespeople that came in during the COVID years aren't really, it's like it was prior. Like you actually have to, we have the inventory now. Everybody has the inventory now. So we have to go back to, selling. And, one thing that I remember, I'll never forget what I do tell a lot of our salespeople. And I learned this from one of my bosses back when I first started working was in this business. And what I think is so great about it is whatever you put in is what you're going to get out of it, especially when it comes to sales. So if you want to work hard, if you want to have success, you will have success. And at the end of the day, it's all a numbers game. The more people that you can interact with and talk to, the more people you're bound to, and have real genuine interactions with, the more people you're bound to help get a car and sell a car for them.
Which some of that can be supported with AI and other automated technologies. But at the end of the day, it's a very human interaction, right? It's a person connecting with another person. That's still the art of salespeople. I loved at the bottom of your post, you said, if you're a motivated, hungry person interested in selling cars, I'm looking for more consultants for our organization. Feel free to message me here if you're interested in applying. So that goes out to our CDG audience that may be in your area that would want to join the Suntrup Auto Group. But where are you seeing the best source of new sales consultants that are coming to your organization ready and prepared and hungry to sell? Everybody wants to know. We will only share it with the three of us and how many ever 10,000 people are watching on Twitter, but they want to know, Andrew, who?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that go with that. You can obviously, we have Hireology. We're putting ads out, trying to get people, but a lot of times having a great reputation and being known for a great place to work really goes a long way. And even word of mouth, even between people that work for you. A lot of people in our industry talk. A lot of people talk. So if you have a good reputation and you as an owner or as a organization, vice president, whatever the case may be, people want to, come and work for you. So I think a lot of it really comes down to making good, genuine, and treating the people that you work with just like you want to treat your customers. They're just as valuable as a customer. And that's, I think, huge. And that's what we really stand by with our group.
Andrew,
awesome.
Philosophical question here as far as your hiring. So would you rather hire one of these hungry salespeople, or would you rather grow one of these rock stars?
That's a good question. Growing is what we try to do, what we like to do best. If someone's hungry and wants to come in, they're coming from a different organization, we'll take that on as well, as long as they're willing to be able to be coached and trained. But I think growing people organically, training them the way that you want them to be trained in the way that your process usually works the best, but it's a lot more work. I think definitely is a lot more work because they've never done it before, but we take pride in doing that. We take pride in taking somebody that has maybe never sold cars before, bring them into our organization, teach them our processes, and see them excel and succeed, because that makes us feel good, especially as in the ownership group and also with and upper management as well.
I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret, and it's not really a secret, but my best source of hiring historically has always been out of two industries specifically. Hospitality. Go to a restaurant, have a great meal, get exceptional service. I give them my card every single time without fail. Also, they don't seem to mind the hours as much as other people because they're working way worse hours than us. Number two, anything military related. You want to talk about structure, you want to talk about discipline. I mean, those two industries go hand in hand as far as someone that you can grow, a green pea that you can turn into a rock star.
I couldn't agree with you more on both that. And some of our best, it's funny you say that, some of our best salespeople have come from some type of service industry. Not so many as military, but definitely service industry for sure.
Scott Campagnella says, my work outside the car business provides me with a unique perspective on the car business. That's a great comment from Scott. Thanks for the comment. And then, you mentioned a couple of other sources for hiring and recruiting. We also have to give a nod to CDG recruiting that also helps with hiring of salespeople and managements and whatnot. Because hiring in automotive is, once you figure it out, a great source to get new talent from, and you continue to work on that, you can build and grow. Last question, Andrew, is the Suntrup Auto Group, all of your family members, are you looking to grow? Are you looking at future acquisitions, or are you happy where you are?
We definitely are. We want to kind of work on what we got going right now. We're in a growth phase, and eventually down the road, and then we have a plan that we'd like to start growing the brand name and growing our franchise. So right now we're working with what we have and working on growing what we currently have.
Without giving away any company or family secrets, is there a brand or an OEM you're most interested in?
Yeah, there is one, but I don't know if I could talk.
Family secrets.
Yeah. Family secret, but we will let you know soon.
There's only 10,000 people watching online right now. So, but here's what I'll tell you.
What's it rhyme like?
We need you back at some point on the show when you decide what that brand is and you're ready to go. let's have you back. So Andrew Sun Tripp, we absolutely appreciate you being on. Thanks for sharing your perspective on your post, your experience outside the auto group, and what you look for in great candidates. Again, Andrew Sun Tripp, Vice President Operations, Suntrup Auto Group. Thanks for being on the show.
And guys, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and thank you for having me.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah.
Fun episode today, Yuli, for a Friday. Let's
fun.
go into the weekend.
Yeah.
Let's have a good weekend. So, hey, and Anna, but between Anna's take on all things automotive, again, props to Anna, and then props to our audience, all of you, all 10,000 plus, for supporting her research, her temperature checks. Anytime she reaches out, engage, interact, and she'll continue to bring us great content here live. And that's our show for this Friday. Thank you for watching the Daily Deal Live, where we break down the biggest moves in the car business as they happen. Don't forget, we're live here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So if this is your world, hit like, subscribe, turn on those notifications so you never miss a beat. And we'll see you next episode. Thanks, everybody. See you Monday.
Thanks, guys.